My God, absolutely breathtaking. This is the Cascatina, the waterfall, Pani, in the Tijuca National Park. It's absolutely magnificent. The beauty in the middle of a monsoon of this biodiversity, this 114-foot cascading waterfall from the Tijuca River above. It's breathtaking, but also shocking. 90% of the Atlantic rainforest has been destroyed. You think about the power of nature, but also the destructive capacity of human beings to clear the rainforest, to destroy the species, to destroy the habitat. The endemicity of this rainforest is spectacular, meaning that the Atlantic rainforest has species found no place else in the world. It's estimated that there are 20,000 vascular plant species in the Atlantic rainforest. 20,000. And of those, perhaps 30% are estimated to be endemic, meaning that they are found only in the Atlantic rainforest. If this habitat is destroyed, if their habitat in the Atlantic rainforest is destroyed, they vanish from the planet. There are thousands of tree species. A scientific study showed that in 1 hectare in the Atlantic rainforest, there were 450 tree species in 1 hectare, the number of tree species in the entire eastern seaboard of the United States. This is how rich the biodiversity is, but it is being lost. The biomass is being diminished dramatically. The number of individual organisms being dramatically reduced. And of course, many species of plants and animals, amphibians, birds, mammals being pushed to the brink of or over the brink of extinction. So we have our work cut out for us. This incredible heritage, this unique place, and it represents unique ecosystems all over the world, are now our responsibility and our generation to protect and to preserve. And in this remarkable place, in this remarkable moment, when you draw in the breath of this rainforest, I think it gives you that extra energy, and our generation should take up that energy and make sure that we are able to pass this heritage to future generations. Absolutely remarkable and a thrill to be here. Here we are in Tijuca National Park. We have another beautiful vista through the haze. We are in a rainforest, and we're experiencing what rainforests do best, and that is receive a lot of rainfall. Of course, we're here in the southern hemisphere summertime. That means the rainy season. In Rio, the rainy season in the tropical southern hemisphere. And there is a lot of rain and a lot of lush vegetation. You can see through the haze, perhaps, that we see the famous Copacabana beach in the distance. Very nice to see. And we're here in a national park, meaning we are in a protected area. And that fact is an important part of our story and an important part of Tijuca. Why is there a national park here? Because this was a region of mass deforestation. In fact, as we know, when the Portuguese settled Brazil, colonized Brazil, expanded agriculture, expanded mining, expanded cattle ranching, the trees were chopped down, and the Atlantic forest was substantially deforested. It's estimated that around 90% of the Atlantic forest was deforested. And This was already recognized not just in our time when we talk about and try to address this issue, but already in the middle of the 19th century. Tijuca Park was established by Emperor Pedro II in the 1860s to start reforesting a deforested area. Now remember that in the 1860s, Brazil still had slavery, and it was slaves who were tasked with this beginning effort of reforestation. Thank goodness slavery was ended in 1888, and thank goodness also that the reforestation effort has continued until our day in the 21st century. We have a massive challenge of reforestation. Brazil has millions and millions of hectares of deforested lands in the Atlantic region, in the Amazon basin, in other parts of Brazil, and there are other degraded lands in the savannas and the wetlands that also require some kind of restoration, whether it is restoration of the grasslands and the wetlands or new afforestation, depending on the ecology. The kinds of efforts that Emperor Pedro II initiated in Tijuca will be crucial for Brazil, and similar efforts crucial in all parts of the world. We know that to fight climate change effectively, we not only have to stop emitting new carbon dioxide from burning fossil fuels or from chopping down trees, but we have to store a lot of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere back into the soils, back into the vegetation. And we are going to have to reforest and restore degraded lands in order to get climate change under control. Tijuca is a beautiful park. It's one of the largest forest urban parks in the world. It is an inspiration. It reminds us that we've been at this effort for a while, but it also, in its beauty and its biodiversity and the number of endangered species that we find in the Atlantic forest, remind us of the urgency of the task of reforestation. And when we enjoy this vista, we should also remember with the pagoda here, this is called the China Vista. And it's also an important story for us because it is the China Vista to recall the cooperation biologically and in human terms of bringing Chinese teas to Brazil. Brazil and South America is a culture of tea, many indigenous teas, many indigenous mates and infusions, but also Chinese teas and Japanese teas were brought to Brazil for cultivation, and the China Vista and this pagoda reminds us of that occasion. It also is good to recall in that context that Brazil and China today are working closely together. They're part of the BRICS countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, the emerging economies that are finding a strong voice and that are calling for global environmental sustainability and climate justice as part of our great effort and challenge in the years ahead. So China and Brazil cooperating, here we are at the China Vista. Good to take inspiration from that. Talk about a green economy. Look where we are. We are in the middle of green, remarkable biodiversity in a park of about 130 hectares in the center of Rio de Janeiro. This is the Rio Botanical Gardens. It's gorgeous, and it is a remarkably wise creation, now more than 2 centuries old. When the whole royalty of Portugal fled Portugal as Napoleon was invading, arrived in Brazil, and established the Portuguese Empire based in Rio, King John VI did 3 things upon his arrival that are absolutely notable. First, he opened the Brazilian economy to trade. This was really at the behest of his patron, the British Empire. Second, he opened the economy to manufactures. And the third, in the midst of all of this chaos and transition and the Napoleonic Wars, he established the Botanical Garden. And this was not merely the idea of a beautiful place, although it is an absolutely beautiful place. This was in the service of the Enlightenment ideas of the time, 1808, to gather science and knowledge for the well-being of society, and in this case for the promotion of the well-being of the Portuguese Empire and the economy. One of the ideas of establishing the Botanical Gardens was to bring the tropical species into one natural location and then use science to cultivate varieties that would be well adapted to the Brazilian context. One of the aims, for example, was to acclimatize several high-value peppers and cinnamons and nutmeg to the Brazilian context, collecting species from the West Indies, from the Caribbean region, from other parts of the tropics in the Americas, and then to adapt them to the local context. So within this park, which is a combination of cultivated areas and natural Atlantic rainforest combined in this beautiful location, there are more than 6,000 species. It's incredible. And just of palms alone, there are more than 600 species of palm trees. What you can see here, this is a palm alley of these beautiful royal palms. There are 134 of these royal palms. In this case, this is not diversity because every one of these royal palms is descended from one mother, Mater Palma, the mother palm of all of these beautiful royal palms on this beautiful alley. But if we walk and explore, we see hundreds of species of trees, of flowering plants, of crops for horticulture, and remarkable biodiversity. Now, this park, which is now more than 210 years old, is not only a place that people come from all over the world to enjoy and to see remarkable species, but it remains absolutely central in its scientific mission. There is a large scientific team based at the Rio Botanical Gardens, which continues to study biodiversity and to examine how that biodiversity can be applied to the challenges of the 21st century. Indeed, there are genetic libraries around the world, places of biodiversity protection like this botanical garden, places where the high genetic diversity of our food crops on which we depend are stored and protected. And we've seen the remarkable application of places like this botanical garden in really saving societies. One example of one of my esteemed colleagues, Professor Glenn Denning at Columbia University, who is an expert in agricultural policy, who worked in Cambodia after the Khmer Rouge, after the genocide in Cambodia. And in that case, Cambodia had hundreds of varieties of rice, which were destroyed in the terrible wars of that era. But the International Rice Research Institute, based in the Philippines, as in this remarkable place, had kept the varieties of the Southeast Asian rice cultivars for protection. So after the terrible wars of Cambodia, that gene bank was used to resuscitate the dozens, the hundreds of rice varieties that were well adapted to all the different microclimates of Cambodia, and brought the society and the economy back to life, overcame hunger, created a new food economy, and now Cambodia is prized as one of the great economies for rice exports to the whole world, with very prized rice varieties. And it was saved by a place like this. Now, Brazil is facing similar challenges. We're going to see in other sites that we visit the challenge of reforesting places in Brazil that have been deforested, in bringing back to life land that has been degraded. And it will be the genetic diversity. The Cambodian experience was distinctive and a particular horror, but this challenge of using a library of biodiversity, of genetic diversity, is going to be applied all over the world, including right here in Brazil. Brazil has millions of hectares of deforested land and degraded land that will be brought back to life in coming years. This will service the economy. This will service nature by enriching the soils once again, by storing biological carbon in the soils as part of the effort of reducing human-induced climate change. And it will be the knowledge of biodiversity and the actual crossing of different varieties and the adaptation of species in a changing climate that will make it possible to bring these vast areas of degraded land and deforested land back to life in a new bioeconomy that makes sense for nature, that is adapted to the changing climate, and can serve for the livelihoods and the well-being of the population. All over the world, we will be restoring degraded lands. We will be adapting our existing biodiversity to what is, because of human action, a rapidly changing climate that needs new capacities of our crops and new crossings and new varieties to be adapted to the changing climate. So what King John VI in 1808 envisioned with the philosophers and scientists of his day in establishing the Rio Botanical Gardens remains a vital truth and a vital investment in the well-being for all of us in the 21st century.